All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Please welcome our guest, Tim Mosher. Tim, how do you?
I'm well, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You are not home right now. You're on the road.
I'm sort of, yeah. I'm actually my first vacation, and I don't know how long, dude. I mean, I don't take them. So
Yeah.
5 years,
Yeah.
something like that, maybe longer. And
Good
I'm in
for
my
you.
home. I'm in my hometown with my stepson, and I'm from Washington D.C. So I'm here in my hometown, staying in a hotel because I don't have any family here anymore. But
Right.
I was raised here,
Yeah.
but he's been wanting to come and you know see where I grew up partially, but also come and do the tourist stuff. And
Yeah. That's
I
cool.
haven't done most of it since I was a little kid, and then as a local, you don't
You
do
don't
it.
do those things. Yeah.
You don't do them. So I mean, we have done everything. We've been walking, so we're sort of close to downtown, but we've done a couple of museums a day. We got a private tour of the Capitol this morning, which was pretty cool.
Big time.
From a senator gave us one of his aides gave us a private tour. That was very cool, and we're National Gallery, Hirshhorn, all those kind of things. And then
Will you make a stop at the 930 Club?
I haven't been
It's
to
different.
the
Yeah.
old one. I walked
Sort of a
by it
different
a
thing.
couple
Yeah.
times, but I think he's getting tired of me saying like, "Oh, this used to be a club." And
Right.
he's like, "Right, okay, Dad."
When
Great.
I go to DC with you, we'll do that tour.
We'll do. I'll take you all the
Because
former,
I'll be nerding on that.
right, the old school punk rock
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
I mean, we stumbled by all of my first venues, which are all now, Pete's Coffee or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Totally.
But that's why I'm in a hotel in the District of Columbia. Yeah.
Nice. Well, we're here because I've been doing this series of talking to composers, and in hopes to maybe open some people's eyes. Not that needs to happen, but just because it'd be kind of interesting, I think, for people to see that being a composer doesn't necessarily mean you're in front of an orchestra with wands and
Yes.
conducting, and there's a lot of things.
I don't think most people have any idea what it is to be a composer.
No, and I think a lot of people just think, like, even when they see like a commercial for whatever, Lyrica or some drug, they hear a noise and they just figure that, well, that noise just exists. But it's like, nope, some guy went like this on a keyboard and it made that happen.
And through 40 versions of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But Tim, just like my other guests we've had so far, is started as a band guy and still is, which I feel a kinship with you because of that. But Tim is a member of Junkyard.
Yep.
And Tim, the first time I became aware of you, you were fronting a band called Broken Glass, and you were opening for the Chili Peppers in my hometown of Santa Barbara. And I know you've been in other bands too. Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch did pretty good, and those are the two record deals with Broken Glass and Sucker Punch.
Yeah,
and those were the major ones, and sundry ones back here. But
yeah,
that's the reason I kind of left, is I couldn't seem to get a toehold back here. Not that there was much of a place to get a toehold, but
But you are now, and have been for a long time at this point, a composer. Well, first, can you tell me a few things, the marquee things, the things, I think you and I have talked about this when you get stuck in that awkward conversation at like a family gathering.
The cocktail party.
It's like, well, telling them about the weird like political commercial that I did the music for, that's just going to confuse them. But if I have something meaty, tell me what's maybe a couple of those things that people have obviously seen that you've done.
Yeah, I mean, as you probably know, you have music in shows that you have no idea you have music in shows.
Yes,
dozens and dozens of them, and so I find out things. I've been in the PTL Club and in Fox and Friends and these places I would never see them because it's really not in my world purview. But and then you did a piece of music for the National League Wild Card Series and last year. I mean, you find these things out later. They've done them, but the things that most people know me for, probably principally, was the 10-year run I did. I wrote the theme song for the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson.
Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Ferguson.
05 to 15.
That's an
And
amazing gig.
yeah,
I'll let you keep going, but 5 nights a week on national television
I was
for 10 years is
very lucky.
that's a
Yeah, I
meaty
got
gig.
very lucky. And occasionally I was the house band when they'd give him budget for a house band. But that was a bone of contention. And I would occasionally appear and do other pieces of music for him.
Uh-huh.
So I started working for him. That was just kind of, I met him then, and we've stayed together. And so I ended up doing a show with him called Celebrity Name Game, which was syndicated for 3 years. That he hosted. He won an Emmy for that one, actually. And that's kind of led me more recently into game shows, which I've always kind of had some, but it's been very much Game Show Network shows that unless you really follow the genre. But then I did the music for Card Sharks on ABC and Press Your Luck on ABC when Press Your Luck's coming back this summer.
Oh,
So
cool.
Card Sharks not, so I've done a bunch of game shows as well, and so I wouldn't be shocked if Celebrity Name Game came back because they rebooted it and did it in Australia a year ago.
Right.
So it's game
Those are
shows
great. Those things that where it's like a gift that keeps on giving.
They're evergreen. I hope it does because that was those were great. So those are kind of the big ones that I think most people would know. I forget things, but that's really
I'm sure that, like you said, there's so many that you're not even told about until after it happens too.
That's the cocktail party version of it.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
that's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for. So I recall, speaking of parties, being at a party at the Raspler's house, the guys that managed 311, and talking to you in early days of that, and we were both kind of trying to wrap our heads around what we were doing as sort of rock guys, parading around composers or whatever. But thinking about that that night and us talking, did you have a point that you kind of recall, a gig that you got or something? Maybe it was that Ferguson thing, but where you're like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do now. Like,
there were a couple of things that happened. I kind of was, I was looking to get into it, but principally I started mostly in commercials, and commercials are much different, animal these days for composers than they were then.
Yeah.
And you could just get a commercial as a guy. You can't really do that anymore. They're controlled by these things called music houses, and there's a lot more layers. And also you couldn't get rock bands to do commercials. Now you can get whatever you want. I want the Black Keys. We'll call them Black Keys. Back then you couldn't get a guy who'd made actual albums for major labels when that was a thing. So this is
totally taboo back then.
Yeah, they wouldn't do. But I was unaffiliated at the time. So I kind of offered that, stamp of being a signed recording artist. And so I had done that. And that was the first kind of, the two big things that I thought were going to be what ended up being what I did all kind of happened at the same time. And one ended up being it and the other one not, when that commercial. So I was doing commercials and had done a few, and they paid really well back then. They paid really well. And like TV was like, I'd done a couple theme songs for a couple cable shows, and they were like, well, I didn't really know much about it. But I was kind of pursuing both. Like I had guys working TV, but I also had guys who worked in commercials and was able to build relationships. And I did a bunch of like avocado radio spots. I mean, that stuff was like very lucrative back then. I did like 6 of them or something, And then right around then I got a Toyota Tundra commercial. It's like a national that aired during football, So, and it went over so big, they bought like 5 of these things. And it was all this just punk rock stuff, because being a DC kid and growing up around hardcore, the creative just wanted something in the vibe of Minor Threat and the Bad Brains. I'm like,
that's my neighborhood. Yeah.
I know those people. So I can get you close in energy and attitude. I was there. And so that's what it was. And I did a bunch of them, and, they had a little bit of singing in them, basically someone yelling, which was me. And so there was SAG, and there was all this, and all of a sudden I jumped a couple tax brackets like that, from being like, well, I got this other thing where I work for a moving company, and, I was trying to figure it out. I'd keep like a clean shirt in my car and at lunch and go and pretend to meet with people that this is what I did for a living. And I said, and then I go back and work at the moving company. And, I think I waited till I had 2 theme songs before I quit that job.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
actually working with my buddy Mike, who's now in Bad Religion. So it was like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the drummer is now the drummer. The guy who ran the whole thing was the guy who's a drummer in Vintage Trouble. So there was a bunch of guys like that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Trying to figure it out. And
Yeah.
Sucker Punch had been dropped, and this was in this period. And then right around that same time, I had written a song that we'd submitted to be the Office theme. But to us, that was, even then, my pretty cursory knowledge of network television. Like, it was a mid-season replacement, an import, a redo of a British show.
Right.
Never worked. That's never worked.
Right.
And
like an American version.
Yeah, it's never worked, and I'm like, well, so I wrote this thing and wrote it very quickly in my underwear in the end of my bed into a dictaphone, as you did back then, with the lyrics. I just spat them out. I had the lyrics and everything. And I think we were really, I knew we were in the final 2 or 3, and I hear the Office theme, and I think they, as you probably know how this happens, they appropriated, were influenced by whatever bits.
Right. They'll be like, we like your thing, but we also like this other thing. Could you make it your thing a little more like this thing?
Or I think they said that vice versa. Like, and the descending chord progressions are kind of similar.
Yeah. But interesting.
I didn't think much of it. I mean, yeah, it would have been great. Okay. But I thought, well, let's get 6 episodes. We'd be lucky to make 3, you never know it's going to be that. And then so I had one of the television guys who I'd been kind of working with. It was actually a DC guy, believe it or not, who'd come out and started working for Leno and then started moving his way through that thing. I'd done a couple shows for him for Oxygen, of all things. One was a game show, and one was kind of a late night show, actually. So it was the beginnings of the 2 things that I've done were with this one guy, a game show and a late night show. And he got a job working for Craig Kilborn and then moved up the food chain there. And then Kilborn left, and I just got a call saying, we got this new guy coming in, and they're not even going to change the set at all. They're going to give him some new suits, but they do know they need a new theme song. And I said, oh, okay. And back then, he said, so just send me some stuff. And to me, that meant like, send me some stuff that I had done, really, or thought if I was cool, or maybe not done, just like pieces of music I had that might be interesting to get him to go, okay, get this guy. Maybe he'll write something for it and submit with a bunch of other guys.
He's got a clue about how to go about it.
Yeah. He'll submit and dial in with a bunch, maybe you'll get, there goes my son.
Yeah.
He's got back from the gym. It was like that. So it was on a CD. As you did back then. With the titles written on it. And I'd written The Office.
As nice as you can.
I'd written The Office like a dummy. Like, why would I do that? I could have called it anything else. You know what I mean? And it's like, way to kill it. And, And then I just get a phone call, and it's this Scottish guy and my buddy saying, we love this theme. We want this to be the theme. And I said, he goes, like, this is Craig Ferguson. I'm like, I don't know if Craig Ferguson was.
Yeah.
He says, I love this. I love the lyrics. Can I change a couple of the lines? And I said, sure. I mean, great. And so what we did was made it night for day. So it was hard to get up. And then he said, we'll make it hard to stay up. So I was writing about it, what a drag it is to get up and go to work. He was talking about how hard it is. We'll just make it everything basically night for day. That was really what we did. And then he came up with the tagline, tomorrow's your future yesterday, which is a big part of the thing. But and then he says, and I'll sing it. It's hard to stay up, it's been a long, long day, and you got the Sandman at the door. But hang on, leave the TV on, and let's do it anyway. It's okay, you can always sleep through work tomorrow, okay? Hey. Tomorrow's just your future yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Ferguson. Okay, because it was me singing like that. I was doing I originally did me in that, McCartney, Uncle Albert, voice. Like, I mean, I'm a real twee British with it. And
did you make a version? The thing that they got, was that slightly better than the dictaphone version, or they got the dictaphone version?
No, it was a full, because we did a full blown production for The Office.
You did it for
like
The Office
with all the ELO strings and all that shit, the Kinksisms, everything.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, the song, if I can find the song did not change at all. I mean, the song was where it was. It was 30 seconds in a little boom.
Just the lead singer and the
acoustic guitar. Yeah, and we changed the singer. Nothing else changed. And in fact, nothing musically was changed. All we did was have them come and re-sing the vocal. There was no like, let's up the production level, let's do any of this stuff. There was none of that. It was just sing it. And so
where did you guys do that, by the way? Where did Ferguson come down and record the vocals?
Well, we were actually kind of between places, and because I was going through a personal thing, and I didn't really have and back then you kind of had to have a studio so you looked legitimate, like someplace people would go. So we didn't just renting a small like Studio B at some back where they had studios just for that afternoon. You know what I mean? Like we had a buddy who was like, I'll give you $300. Can we have this place for the afternoon? It could look semi-pro, but all you're really doing is plugging a computer and putting it into the big speakers. But there's whatever. You know. Then the computer was the size of a fridge, or like a mini fridge. But you know what I mean? Like,
and did half as much as your iPhone.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, and he just came in and sang it. It was, I don't know, a few takes. Years later, he said, I want to kick it up, and we did a semi re-record. We put like real live drums. We went to a big room and put in drums, and like, because he was a drummer, so he played a bit of drums, and we did a full length. We ended up extending it and making it like a full length song. There's 2 extra verses, a bridge, a guitar solo.
Does he play the drums on it?
He plays some of the, mostly it's Stoker, my partner on that. Stoker was in General Public and Dexys Midnight Runner, so he's a great drummer. And Craig was a fan of his from Dexys. So from that whole, you know, whatever the Northern Soul Rebel things. Anyway, and Gino and all that. That's all Stoker. So they connected like that too, because Craig's an ex-drummer, punk drummer.
Yeah.
And that really began television for me. And then slowly commercials just became such a thing, and like demoing. And I was like, you know, the only reason I'll do commercials these days is they're good sources for theme songs, because you get this very, you know, agencies tend to be trendy. So it's the latest, coolest thing. And they go, and that's the vibe they want. And then they want it short. So those end up being, I've had a couple of things that I wrote as commercials for Target or whatever.
That you can just
and I just kind of like, it's actually a really good piece of music, and TV people are like, well, this is a great little theme.
Yeah.
And so that's happened to me. So some commercials are good because it gives the exercise of writing themes. And when I write themes for shows, I don't give them 1 or 2. I generally give them a lot. You know, start with a big number and whittle down, and you know, and there can be multiple rounds. I mean, each round is a minimum of 6 themes. That's after they've hired you, 6 themes, and then you'll do, I don't know, I've done up to 40. I mean, you know, it can be all kinds of, you know, variations of that. So
yeah, I remember the first commercial that I ever got was with Rick Parker, and it was for a Mazda commercial, and they came in, they had all these notes about, we love Belle and Sebastian, and we love this thing, and we love so we had all these things to go on, and we just listened to it, and we made like 10 different things with all their different ideas, whatever. And just for a laugh, I had this like riff that sounded like a James Gang, like Joe Walsh thing. That I was like, what if we just gave one thing like this, just in case there's like a rock guy in the house?
There's the changer, the change up.
And the guy who was making the final call on the thing, they were all sitting around listening to him, was like, that sounds like the James Gang. That's the one. And
you're kidding me.
It was just literally that exact band rang his chime. And so, yeah.
But it also is important. I mean, here's the thing, is that it was you. You're speaking through. That's where you come from. You know? And so it's always going to, what they're looking for is the authenticity they think these bands have. And what you gave them was something authentic to you, and that reads.
It's what
you're a good writer, and there it is. You know what I mean? Same with the Ferguson theme. Like, I got some creative, but I wrote what I felt like writing at that moment. You know what I mean? And that always is better. It's hard to make people understand that. Like, trust me to write what I think will be cool. And eventually we'll get there if you think I'm a cool writer. If you don't, you know, mazel tov. But you know what I mean? But when you're trying to tell me how to be a writer, and I'm actually the writer, you are kind of making this more difficult. And so I still throw in change ups. Like there's always just like the outlier, like let's throw it in there. Occasionally it pops, you know what I mean? And the one I'll sit there and grind on like 2 of them. Like one of these is the winner.
Yeah.
And then it's like number 7. I'm
over
like,
there.
That one?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Really? Okay.
Totally.
You know, and then usually there is something in it. I'm like, you know, something very distinctive and simple. And you're like, okay, here I am trying to, you know, reinvent the wheel a bit and like make every moment a moment, which is part of themes, as you know. But sometimes it's just like a really good idea. But sometimes you do lose the forest through the trees.
Yeah,
so you're desperate not to get fired because we've all been fired from shows,
trying everything. You know? Totally.
Yeah, you don't want to get fired. You know, you need the gig, and you know, and when you think you're getting fired from a show, you think you're going to lose that executive producer for every other show he ever does beyond that. You know what I mean?
So there's more.
You generally stay with people. You know, I stay with the same people over and over again, and if you don't win for him, you're like, he didn't, you know, because they're. From that in television shows, it's like you're bartered off like a caterer. Like, so there'll be a couple of executive producers, and they kind of re-team from show to show most of the time, and they'll come in and it'll just be a bar. You know, like I want my catering guy, and I want my makeup guy. Like, well, I get the music guy. Like, okay, and sometimes it's not your turn. The guy's like, he had his music guy. And then you're like, okay, and then if you're the music guy and it's that guy and he's sticking his neck out for you, you
want to stay in there.
And so you want to stay in there. And if he has to and so this all shows end quickly. I mean, I've done 40 plus theme songs that have made it to air. 40 plus.
Wow.
And
that's insane.
Yeah. And I think one's on the air right now. I mean, it's just
that's telling. Yeah.
That's the nature of it, right? You know, I mean, that's over 20 years, but you know.
Yeah, still, yeah.
So the attrition rate is, so when you have your people, you try to keep them happy. So the fear of like letting them down, because you know it's going to end, and when's the next one coming? You know?
Yeah.
And am I on the list? Do I make the cut? You know,
if it was just up to you, and you had any gig you wanted at your fingertips, what would you do composer-wise, stylistically as a score? Like what kind of style, and also like what type of thing, like a show, a movie?
I mean, I guess a movie would be great. I mean, I'd probably lean in towards doing more acoustic music if I had my choice of any kind to do, you know?
Like literally like an acoustic guitar and...
simple. Like, I always loved Dylan's score for Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Like, to me, that's
okay,
like
cool.
Great, you know
interesting.
I mean? Like, that's cool. I like that. I like the less is more, you know.
Okay, cool.
But I like that kind of stuff. Like, that's what I would like to play and do. But I like doing rock and roll music because it's fun, but it's harder to make long as well. It's like, where do you go? I don't bang, bang, boom, you know. But, you know, so maybe a Western or something like that, actually. I guess that's the best place for it. Or,
you know, for that au naturel kind of.
I guess that'd probably be it, you know.
Yeah,
I haven't really done
Very
one.
cool.
There was talk about doing when we demoed a bunch of stuff for a Western that we didn't end up getting, and it was all that. Bit of Mando. Kind of weird sounds, you know. I like that.
Very cool. Okay, well, this is a question that I'm going to ask every guy in this series of things I'm doing. If you had to choose between a career in a successful rock band or a career as a successful composer, meaning like, you know, you can be Danny Elfman or you can be Angus Young, you know, like which way would you lean there if you know? Both successful.
I think, and maybe it's just because I come from that. It's just if you can get to that level that of an Angus Young or which is incredibly rare.
Yeah.
And you have so much control of what you're doing.
Yeah.
That is the key. Elfman still gets notes. Elfman probably still gets fired. I mean,
Interesting point.
Zimmer gets fired. You know, you are. I mean, it's a really collaborative art form, but that also means someone else is saying something.
Lang might say, "Hey, Angus, what if you did that one extra time or something?" But he's not getting notes on nothing.
He's not getting notes. And then in his real domain, which is touring, it's, you know, private jets and, you know, you're traveling a lot, but, you know, But as a 30-year-old man, I would take band. Maybe as I'm in my mid-50s, it's pretty obvious I'd rather sit in front of a computer, I guess. But, you know, there's something appealing about being your own thing. Like, I'm me, or my band is me, or whatever it is. Like, if you're a guy who can just go out and, I always look at guys like that. I mean, that's, and if you've written a couple things that just keep you, I mean,
right.
I'd be happy with a level of like, like a Chris Christopherson. Like, I've written 2 or 3 classics that are just going to earn forever.
Yes.
And I play 1,000 people and do what I feel like.
Sure.
That sounds pretty good to me. And no one tells Chris Christopherson what to fucking do.
No, you know? No.
And
maybe
so that's the one good thing about being, you know, a band, is that you are your own little army, your own little fiefdom.
You get paid to do you.
You get exactly, and you're not having to go out and, I mean, they're coming no matter what, if you're at that level. So I think in the end, I think I would do that. You know, even at that.
You should know, you are the first person that I'm asking that of everybody.
Yeah,
and I'm with you on that. I lean that way too.
I mean, I love what I do, but if I like having control.
Yeah.
You know,
and I don't know, being I don't think I've ever been happier than playing in a rock band.
I've never been happier, never more miserable. Too.
Yeah. Well, it comes with a lot of.
Yeah. The downsides are tough. Yeah. There's a lot of heartbreak, but I've had a lot of heartbreak in my composing career. So
you don't get around that necessarily by being.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, there's no free lunch, obviously. So, but I think if it were that, but you know, whenever I'm around my friends who are still in touring and successful bands, like, oh, I wish I could just sit in that room like you and all day. You know, I mean, I love writing. I mean, I think that's it. I think maybe it's more like, would you rather be a successful songwriter or a successful composer? I would.
That's sort of
say songwriter.
Yeah.
And if being that songwriter means you have to go out and take them out and play like Jackson Browne or something like that, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do enough to maintain the brand. But you know what I mean? Maybe like a guy like J.D. Souther. Like, no one knows who the fuck he is.
Right.
A ton of money.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of guys.
Yeah.
All right. J.J. Cale was one of those. Like, no one knows who the fuck J.J. Cale is, you know.
But he's got his fingers in a lot.
He's got a lot of, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that's how I got into it. I was a songwriter who morphed to a composer. I just made songs. It wasn't like I went to composering school or anything. I was in a rock band like you. You know, and we just kind of, well, it's writing. It's just the format. It's a little different, but you know, you still need a good idea, and you have to execute it well. And
and you start kind of watching TV and listening to TV a little differently.
Yeah, you tune in,
start noticing things, and
but it's like how you figure out how to be in a band that got a gig, then how to be in a band that got a gig to a band that could fill a place, and how to be a band that fill a place to get a record deal. You just start to go watching, pay
attention,
pay attention, mind the business end of it, see what is, you know, and align yourself with people that you can help you, and start moving up the ladder like you did when you got signed. You know how you do it. It just kind of there's a path once you see it, and you have to execute the path. But you know, and the same with this. And hopefully you have some good. You can deliver the goods when it counts.
When it matters. Yeah. Do you have some things? I mean, a lot of these things you're not allowed to talk about when you have things in the works. But is there anything coming up that you? Yeah,
I have this new thing I'm kind of doing with which I've actually roped you into as well a bit, and with another Tim, and it's a kind of, we're writing a bunch of music for a bunch of different shows for a production company. One has already been two are on the air. One's called Fast Foodies, which is on True, and that's in the second season. Another one's called 911 Crisis Center, which is on Oxygen. And really what it is we kind of have a batch of a small group of composers like yourself and a few other guys who specialize in different genres that are able to get a bunch of cues together quick enough that you can actually supply them to reality shows without them having to go exclusively to libraries.
Right.
So it kind of sits in this middle world between a library and a composer. I mean, I guess on its face, Tim and I are the composers and we are the piece. And we do write a lot of it ourselves, obviously, but there is only so many hours in the day. Right. So this is this new thing, and there's a couple new shows that are in the offing, an E show and a True TV show, another True TV show, and a Bravo show. But you know, until they hit the other two are on the air, And I can say those have actually happened. I've heard the music in there. Until then, the other ones I'm like, when it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
And so we've done a bunch of stuff. We've actually done some Hallmark stuff and a couple of award shows. So we've done a couple of different. It's a kind of an interesting way because you can tackle a bunch of things that you aren't necessarily known for per se, but just as reality television, which all TV is basically the way reality is paced. Most television, except for sitcoms and dramas, is basically this like stem to stern music, and this is kind of filling that void of like, how do you have good music written by real guys that also
can get churned out at a level,
get churned out at a semi-comparable level to a library.
Yeah,
because everyone wants their stuff to be unique and of itself, and so it's a kind of I guess it's sort of a new hybrid model that we kind of stumbled into by having to do it, and then we've got more and more, and we've added a few. We're adding guys, but you got to keep the quality very high and all that stuff, and you try and write as much as you can, but then you start, oh Jesus Christ! I mean, then you find a guy who can what takes you 3 days, he does it in 3 hours, and you're like, well, maybe I should. Sometimes delegating is the worst. I'm just going to
tell him what to do.
Yeah, because he's much better at this one thing. So.
I think if people hearing us talk about what you're talking about right now, if people out there watching this, I encourage you, the next time you're watching like the most sort of mundane reality show, like when pet cats attack or just any whatever show like that.
HGTV, any HGTV show.
Yeah. Those home makeover things. They are so riddled with music that it shows you what Tim is talking about right now with having.
Or a good example, I think, is like watch any Housewives, any of them. Pick one. Pick one. Every time there's a piece of music, count and a new piece of music. If your ears are tuned enough to notice there's a new piece of music, you will be shocked. You will get through 15 pieces of music within less than 3 minutes, probably even more. Yeah. It's within seconds. These are moving through cues. So the volume that these shows go through cues requires like this huge amount of music. Yeah.
And therefore, we as composers in that world are up against a guy who has access to this hard drive and has gotten everybody on said hard drive to sign off and say, yes, you can use it for whatever you want. And there's 30,000 songs on it.
Yeah.
So that's a hard thing to compete with when
it is. The way you do that is by saying, well, these are for your show.
Right.
Because we get the actual creative, the producer say, this is what we'd like to meet. And so we start building based on the things they're telling us, opposed to what editors having to go through and just really just sift through stuff, you know? And also, every editor's like, well, how many shows have used this cue already this month? Other shows.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing you're bringing to them is it does help with a specialization and helps with the palette of the show, the tone of the show, the look of the show, everything can start to feed into that. And editors don't sit there and complain to executive producers like, we hate the music. That's not all they're going to do is say it's taking them longer to do it because they can't find music they like.
Yeah.
And that costs more money for shows. The less, the post-production is a very expensive part. And so there's also
you're taking some time out of the editing by delivering things that you already know are in the vein of.
And then what happens is the editors start knowing you and saying, "Yes, give me. I want your stuff because I'll have use for it right away."
Right, and they'll get off my back because they like what you do.
And they'll get off because I'm getting cuts out to them faster. And then also, if they're not coming back with tons of revisions, that's cost more money as well. And so all those factors made us sort of fall into this kind of weird hybrid that we'll see how it progresses. It's just it's building, but it's sort of seemed to take off pretty quickly. Yeah, and I'm glad to have you. It's a big help.
Cool. Well, Tim, thank you for your time, your knowledge, and
knowledge.
I was really afraid that this could easily go down. Remember when everything was cool?
Rock story.
I didn't want. I always wanted to keep us on track, but we didn't go there. I'm glad we pulled
I haven't told one Junkyard story, so this is great.
I'll probably tell a couple and certainly play some.
Yeah, well,
Thank you so much, man, for doing
Good to
this.
see you.
You too.
I haven't seen your face in a few weeks or
Yeah.
months. I guess it's
Yeah.
been. So it's nice to see you, and thanks for chatting with me. I
Yeah.
love talking a little shop, so it's
Yeah,
always a
man.
good time.
Maybe we'll do it again with a slightly different angle next time.
Okay, I'm
All
down.
right.
I'm down.
Awesome, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.